everybody. Welcome to the No BS Zone. I'm Bernie Goldberg, for those of you who don't know, and I'm here with John Daly. How are you, John?
I'm good, good. How about you, Bernie?
Good. John, let me say that John has a very special guest today who he's going to interview. I'm going to just let it all flow. This is John's segment. This is John's interview. Who are you interviewing today, John?
As it turns out, Bernie, I'm interviewing a guy who worked at CBS News for many years as a journalist, well-respected journalist, until he came out and
I
wrote
worked
some
I
stuff.
worked at CBS News for a long time, by the way.
It's quite a coincidence, and worked at HBO Real Sports for I think 20 years, maybe
22 years. Yeah, I was
22
here for 22 years.
and of course a Fox News analyst for quite some time as well, at least 10 years. So, Bernie, the man I am interviewing today is you. Uh, we've done this format before in the past, and we thought it would be fun to try it again.
Now,
Um,
let me just say that to the people listening. I knew I was going to be the subject of the interview, but I have no idea of what topics John is going to raise. I have no idea of what questions he's going to raise. If I don't know an answer to one of his questions, I'll fake it. No, I'll say, I don't know. But let's see where this goes. This could be either very interesting or a big mistake on our part.
we'll see. We'll see. I think we can afford to try this risk, Bernie. So I wanted to ask you first about Bari Weiss and CBS News. There is reportedly a big acquisition in the works involving Paramount and Bari Weiss. Paramount is working on acquiring Weiss's publication, The Free Press. Apparently, there have been talks going on for over a year. And part of that apparently would be putting her in charge of CBS News. This would, of course, be a huge change at your former news organization, Bernie. I wanted to know your thoughts on this.
Well, Skydance, which just purchased Paramount, which owns CBS News, Skydance has made very clear that it wants more voices on the air at CBS News, a variety of voices. Now, CBS, as all the other news organizations, will deny this and say they don't have a bias. Well, they do, but it's not a conspiracy at CBS News. It's just groupthink, too many like-minded people in one newsroom. So if Skydance is putting Bari Weiss in at CBS News in some capacity, because I don't think we know if that's going to happen. And if it is, we don't know what capacity it'll be. That'll be because they want the kind of voices we traditionally haven't heard at CBS News. And if that's the case, I think it's a great idea.
Excellent. It's interesting because the when she went to work for the New York Times a few years ago, this was to a lesser extent. Obviously, this was what the New York Times hired her to do, to mix up things in the newsroom and diversify the reporting there. And there was so much pushback on her efforts that it basically forced her out. And that's when she started the Free Press, which has been very successful. But yeah, there's definitely some irony there, and there's already been some talk behind the scenes at CBS News of people who are very upset about this,
Yeah,
claiming she.
that's what I was going to say, John. Anybody they put in who isn't, a George Soros clone will be viewed as a Genghis Khan right-wing screwball. Now, nobody's going to call Bari Weiss a screwball, but the discontent, you're right. They don't want somebody coming in to look over their shoulder.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the word right wing because I have seen, there were some of the critics of this are trying to portray her as some kind of right winger, and she's not. I mean, if anything, she's sort of center left. But her critics on the left just portray her that way because she does indeed on the Free Press give voice to a lot of right of center thinkers, along with people on the left as well. So she's got this variety of perspectives, and there's obviously something along with the success she's enjoyed over there that caught the eye of people over at Skydance. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but it's I think if it happens, and we don't know if it will happen. We don't know what the details exactly will be. We don't know what her power would be, if any, at CBS News. But I think it could only be a good thing. I think it can only, that we've seen, the ratings drop across the board for the mainstream media, and it would be a good thing to at least try something different. If they don't like it, they can always do something else. But I think it would be interesting to see what she could bring to the table.
Yeah, I've said this before, John, that liberals in America's newsrooms, many of them don't believe they're liberal. They believe they're reasonable. They believe they're middle of the road and moderate. So anybody who doesn't fit into their club, as Bari Weiss does not fit into their club, they see as a conservative at best, a right winger at worst. They always circle the wagons and they look down everybody's throat. They do that for a living. They look down the throat of military people. They look down the throat of political people, sports people. They look down everybody's throat. That's what they do for a living. But they don't want anybody checking them out. They don't want anybody looking down their throat. So again, this tells me more about the people in mainstream media at CBS News and beyond than it does about Bari Weiss. I have no problem with Bari Weiss taking an important role at CBS News. Not that it matters if I do have a problem, but I don't. But that's not how it's going to go over in-house at CBS.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing, and I doubt you saw this, Bernie, but Noah Rothman over at National Review, a conservative writer, he sort of gave you a nod on all this when the details were coming out. Again, we don't know if this is what's going to happen, but the idea of Bari Weiss bringing diversity of thought to the CBS newsroom, he sort of said this is sort of what you had written about so long ago, and gave you some props on that.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, good. Thank you, Noah Rothman. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So next, Bernie, I wanted to ask you about the Department of War. It's a new department in our federal government. Donald Trump, President Trump, has rebranded the Department of Defense as the Department of War. He's very excited about this. Pete Hegseth is very excited about this. He was putting the new name out in all caps on social media. It doesn't appear to be a legal name change, as it apparently isn't within the president's power to do such a thing. Instead, it's a sort of a cosmetic change, which will include signs and emblems on buildings and on letterhead, on everything else, apparently costing billions of dollars to employ. The whole thing seems, to me, it seems kind of weird, being that Trump has been trying to establish himself as the anti-war president, and really, as we've discussed here, he's been trying hard for the Nobel Peace Prize. So I'm curious, Bernie, what do you think this is about? Is this just about getting people talking about other stuff, like the jobs numbers and Putin blowing Trump off, that sort of thing, or was there a demand for this somewhere within the administration? What do you think?
No, there was no demand, but I think Trump wakes up and he says, what can I do today to either respond to controversy or create it out of nothing at all? To the extent that he likes the name war better than defense, that may explain it all. That may be part of his personality. We don't play defense. It's like the line from the treasure of the Sierra Madre. Badges? We don't need no stinking badges. And in Trump's case, it's like defense. We're America. We don't play defense. We go to war against our enemies. It doesn't sound terribly grown up to me. If they never, it was the Department of War a long time ago. If they never changed it to Department of Defense, that would have been fine with me. I don't know why he does. I do know why. He does these things in part because it gets him out of bed in the morning. It's the air he breathes, creating controversy, creating something where people will jump on it. And the people who will jump on it are jumping on something, the left will jump on it. And many Americans might say, well, what's wrong with the Department of War? So he may win politically by calling it the Department of War because he has a knack for doing things, whether they're legal or constitutional or not, that resonate with regular folks. Maybe they did a focus group and found out that the Department of War plays better than the Department of Defense. Who knows? Trying to be rational with Donald Trump is a fool's game.
It's interesting. Someone asked him, I think it was over the weekend, a reporter asked him, because after this happened, after this name change, Trump on social media posted some message that basically it was a meme, so I guess he offers a little bit of plausible deniability, even though he posted it, but basically saying something along the lines of, Chicago is going to soon learn what Department of War is all about, and it just so people were. I know that was just bluster on his part, just something to get attention, but a reporter asked him, are you saying you're going to declare war on Chicago? And he went off, that's fake news. Where did you even come up with this idea? And it was like, well, you did kind of throw it out there. I mean, is it fair for a reporter to ask that sort of question, Bernie?
Yeah, he throws things out to get a reaction, and broadly speaking, to create controversy. A lot of people run away from controversy. Unless it's a matter of principle, they figure, who needs this? Who needs controversy? Who needs it? Trump needs it. He needs it. He lives for it. It is the reason for his being to be at the center of controversy.
Yeah, it's just one more note on that. It's funny whenever I and this is out on social media. I don't really get it on our website, but when I put out columns there, often that if they're critical of Trump, it usually has nothing to do with foreign policy. But I'll get people, his fans will run, and you're just a neocon, you're just a warmonger. I'm like, okay, now that Trump is, he's bombed Iran, he's renamed the Department of Defense the Department of War. I'm like, doesn't he? It's just the disconnect is sort of strange there. How people are more than willing to use that line of attack against people like me, but just kind of ignore certain things from the administration.
I don't imagine, for a guy who desperately wants a Nobel Peace Prize, the key word is peace. Even if you bring peace to if you reduce tensions around the world, let's give him the benefit of the doubt for the sake of this discussion. Putting war in the title of one of your cabinet posts, I don't know that that's going to win points with the Peace Prize Committee over in Stockholm or Oslo, wherever they're located. But then again, I don't think Donald Trump plays things out in his head all the way to the end before he says something or does something.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So I wanted to ask you about switch topics here. About one of the things that I think has defined much of the Trump era, especially in the second Trump term, has been the rejection of expertise. You have RFK Jr., who's was put in this top position in the administration over health, and he is rejecting all kinds of science. Saying the scientists don't know what they're talking about. Um, in favor of, he's very anti-vax. He's been removing money from vaccine research. On the economic side, we seem to be paying a pretty huge price right now for President Trump's tariffs. The big selling point for the administration was that these tariffs were going to strengthen U.S. manufacturing. Professional economists across the board were saying all along, and almost in a consensus voice, that these tariffs would do no such things, because tariffs would make the cost of manufacturing materials, along with lots of other goods, much more expensive. Pretty clear now with these latest job numbers that the economists were right. 12,000 manufacturing jobs were lost last month. 42,000 have been lost since Liberation Day. 78,000 have been lost since Trump returned to office. The unemployment rate right now is the highest it's been since 2021. It's in double digits for young adults. Meanwhile, the administration is bragging about all the tax money it's taking in from Americans, being that the tariffs amount to the biggest tax hike in U.S. history, according to the numbers, about $1,300 more for each U.S. household. Bernie, do you think I think we are seeing in public sentiment a lot of sectors that are really sort of feeling the pain from this now. Do you think we will see a reversal of what has been, I think, since COVID, especially a cultural backlash against experts?
There has been a backlash against experts for much of this century. Medicine, politics, education. Uh, that's one of the major themes of what's been going on for the past 20 years or so. Um, as I want to comment on the tariffs, if I might.
Sure.
Um, there's something enticing in Trump world to say, well, it's just not fair. They charge us 50% on our goods, and we only charge them 5% on their goods. That's not fair. And that resonates with a lot of people because it doesn't sound fair. It doesn't sound reasonable. But what he didn't do, because he was so enamored by the idea that I could win political points by coming down on all these foreign countries, he didn't play the movie through in his head all the way to the end, because tariffs are going to increase prices on things. A lot of economists are saying that, and we're going to feel it in the coming months. And then you have the midterms coming up. Now, this is going to affect how voters, if prices haven't come down as he promised they would, and in fact go up, if he thought it through, he wouldn't have started this in the first place, or he would have done it in a different way. But he just was enamored by the idea, we're not taking this crap from anybody anymore. We're not taking it. And that's a theme running through a lot of stuff that he does. But there are consequences that he didn't think about, I don't believe, and he may, and his party may pay a price for next year.
I think someone in his administration, and I should have looked it up, I read over the weekend, sort of made maybe it was Trump himself, but I'm not positive about that, but made the comment, well, things will look better a year from now. Don't worry about it. And I'm just like, that's not a great political soundbite to throw out there. Well, wait a year, it'll be better then. And when, we were told before it would be great from the onset.
Yeah, you're not asking me about this, but I just find this fascinating that Donald Trump is one of those people who makes predictions all the time that I'm going to do this on day one. The only thing he did on day one that he promised was pardon all the thugs involved with January 6th, but I'm going to end the war. Prices are going to come down on day one. There'll be no more crime. All these promises that he makes that don't come true, that any reasonable person, any stable genius, as he describes himself, would have known is a ridiculous thing to promise. He's not embarrassed or ashamed or troubled. That may be the better word. He's not troubled when his predictions don't come true. I find that interesting.
And he usually just says they did come true and say that it was a great victory, and a lot of people buy it somehow. So yeah, it's interesting.
Prices aren't coming down.
No, no, and I mean that's the whole thing with this. It's just this stuff was entirely predictable. It goes back to, and I think about, and again, we're talking about Trump here, but it goes to a lot of, we look at Joe Biden early in his presidency. All of the foreign policy experts, all of the military brass were saying you can't just pull out of Afghanistan like that. You need to keep a presence. You need, if you do, it's going to be chaos. And Joe Biden and Trump wanted to do the same thing if he had won that election. But Biden was the guy who did it and yanked it out. Pulled everybody out. Everything turned to hell, and it went down maybe faster than what the experts thought, but definitely very much in the direction that the experts were saying. And it's frustrating. And you look at COVID with the whole, there was plenty of legitimate criticism for medical experts and how COVID was treated. You had with the mask stuff initially, the mixed messaging on that. Um, with some scientists were saying it's okay to go out and protest these Black Lives Matter. um, uh, uh, become involved in that, but not do other things. And that I get why experts took it on the chin. They should have taken it on the chin for that. But we've sort of going in this other direction of just so heavily anti-vax with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It drives me nuts that there's never like a spot in the middle where people can say, okay, they were wrong about this, they're right on this. There's this inclination to just say the experts don't know what they're talking about, and that's to me that's not good.
No, as a generalization, it's not good, but there's enough truth in it where
To,
the experts in a whole bunch of different areas of our cultural life got it wrong. And that opens the door for Donald Trump to come in and say whatever he says and have millions of people say, yeah, the experts don't get it right. Why shouldn't I go with Donald Trump? He sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
yeah, no, I mean that's I think that sums it up. The public sentiment there. So Bernie, I wanted to talk to you about the piece you wrote on Monday for the website. It was about the social media rumor. At least it started out as that with that Donald Trump had died. I don't think was that last weekend that happened. I don't think any mainstream news media outlets actually fell for the speculation or gave it credibility. Um, I'm glad that's the case, but it got a lot of national attention, and a lot of people later discussed the story on news commentary shows. Bernie, is this another testament to how much more public influence social media has than actual news organizations? And if so, is that sort of depressing to you, or how do you feel about that?
We live in the United States of entertainment. And when a bunch of yahoos, based on absolutely nothing, say Trump is either very ill or he's dead. Why? Because we haven't seen him in a couple of days, right? We didn't see Biden for a couple of years, and I don't remember speculation about whether he was dead or alive.
Although I think there was some actually, I think Trump might have thrown
Oh
some
yeah,
out there at some
Trump may
point.
have started,
Yeah,
but in the United States of entertainment, stuff like that is entertaining in a perverse way. President of the United States is dead and we're not told about it. It's stupid. Anybody with half a brain knows it's not true. But for some people, it's entertainment. It's exciting. You know, it's that they like conspiracies. I've long wondered why certain people like conspiracies, and I think it's because it adds some excitement to their otherwise unexciting lives. And this was one that no intelligent, serious person should have taken seriously, and yet it was out there, and therefore, with some justification, legitimate news organizations reported on the phenomenon of all these people, thinking it might be true, not on that it was true. You see the distinction?
yeah, yeah.
They were reporting on, hey, look at what's happening out there in social media. They weren't saying Trump might be dead. No news organization jumped on that bandwagon.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing, but it is sort of I see a lot of stories that basically start off, in the social media world and make it around the world, and then kind of realize later just how ridiculous it is, and it's I mean this one was ridiculous at the time. I mean I didn't really it didn't make much sense to me from the beginning. I guess Trump's canceled a couple scheduled meetings, and that's what people played off of. And but yeah, it's I'm not as down on social media as a lot of people are, just as a whole. But it really can broadcast a lot of ridiculous stuff around the world and at breakneck speed. and then it takes much longer a lot of times to get it out there that this was not true or something like. Well, this one's an easy one to debunk. Trump came out and started talking, but it's so many times it's the initial narrative that people buy and hold on to, and yeah, again, I don't. That's kind of scary to me.
The rest of that column was about I want to pick a particular point of the column. Well, let's move on. I'll focus in on something else in that column worth talking about.
Oh yeah, no, if you want to, I was
Well,
actually going to get into.
let me
Go
do
ahead.
it let me do it now.
Sure.
Main Street, J.B. Pritzker, the progressive governor of Illinois, and Gavin Newsom, the progressive governor of California, both Democrats, were on TV saying, Trump is going to shut down, or good chance he's going to shut down the 2026 midterms and the 2028 presidential election. Okay, they're politicians. That's what they're going to say, the progressive Democrats. But if I'm the reporter and I'm airing that, if I'm airing it from a news clip from another place, when they come back to me in the studio and I have a guest who I'm going to ask about what they just heard, I'm going to say, I think we ought to make clear there's no real evidence. There's nobody in the White House saying this is a plan that Trump is going to try to steal the election in 2026 and then shut down the election in 2028. I think there's an obligation, an obligation of sorts anyway, to say these people are saying it, they're liberal, progressive Democrats, but we need to point out that there's no evidence to support it. But when Trump says something that doesn't have evidence to support it, they always make that point. They always say, Trump said today such and such, absent any evidence. Well, J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom you could say it's different in that they made predictions. And they made predictions about a guy who arguably did try to steal the election last time around, in 2020 anyway. But it did catch my eye, and I did write that you can't let people make outlandish comments if you're a news anchor without saying they're outlandish comments, or at least saying they're made without any substantive evidence to support it. Am I being too picky, John?
No, no. I mean, you brought up the point that there is, Donald Trump's past. There are things, obviously one can point at to show that he's not, always going to uphold the results of an election. But yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I think that when people make claims that someone is going to do something, Bernie, you and I were talking a little bit about just a little bit before I started recording. I'm of the opinion that Trump is more than willing to go to bat for himself when it comes to, putting his finger on the scales of an election. I don't think he cares that much about Congress. I honestly don't. I don't think he did in his first term either. I don't think he would go through the trouble of even trying to do something to the results of this election. But, I could be wrong, but it's like you said, if there's not really evidence out there showing that this is part of a plan, that should be made clear.
Well, he ought to care about the
Oh, he
election
should. Sure.
because he's a lame duck if the Democrats take over the House. And as of today, which is more than a year off, so any prediction more than a year off involving politics is just stupid. But here goes anyway. If I had to bet today, I'm betting that the Democrats take control of the House and Trump's presidency, in effect, is over. He will get nothing through Congress. He will do things. What you think I'm wrong about that?
I think he'll just keep doing executive orders like he is. I mean, Congress really isn't helping him do much right now.
That's not getting anything through Congress. Yeah, you're right. But he won't have the Republican majority to rubber stamp the stuff he wants to put through, but he will be just as combative, just as prone to controversy. Donald Trump isn't, even in 2028, when he's out of office, Donald Trump will still be there. He will
I think
be,
that's
he will be a looming presence for many, 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 many years to come.
no, I think that's true. I think he'll be sort of a kingmaker. I think even after he's out of office, I think Republican presidential hopefuls will be trying to win over his favor and win over his endorsement.
Because,
No matter how badly things end, to be
because,
honest.
because he's awakened he's awakened a MAGA audience. We never even used the term a few years ago. He's
Right.
awakened that crowd. And even if Trump goes away at some point, they're not going away. So they're going to have to be supporters of Donald Trump, even if Donald Trump's been out of office for a year, 2 years, 5 years, maybe even 10 years. Who knows? I mean, that's going too far out to make any predictions about. But his he is a toxic presence, and his toxicity won't go away when his term ends.
Yeah, I think that's true. So Bernie, I wanted to, and you may not know this. I listen to quite a few political commentary podcasts, and I noticed, and there are numbers that back this up that podcast listeners like this sort of thing. These podcasts they end with on a more of a personal note, personal topics, pop culture topics in some cases. So Bernie, I wanted to ask you a couple pop culture questions, and get your take on it because this is something that this is an argument that goes around quite a bit. It was on social media. It kind of made a resurrection a few days ago on who Bernie was the best James Bond. I'm curious who you think that is.
Well, the conventional wisdom is Sean Connery. I thought Roger Moore played it very hip, very, very comedic in a British sense, a classy British sense. I like Roger Moore, but it's either Roger Moore or James or
Sean Connery.
Sean Connery. The others, no,
Interesting.
no.
Interesting. I would choose Daniel Craig. I thought he
And
was the best.
my least favorite, not because it's his fault, but because James Bond became an action adventure, as opposed to whatever else it was before that. With James Craig, it was get on a motorcycle and escape my least favorite.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, it's so I've never read Ian Fleming's books. I don't know which Bond is truer to that character. I just kind of assumed that Sean Connery was, but in discussing this on social media, a lot of people were telling me actually Daniel Craig's quite a bit closer to who Bond was in Fleming's book. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was told. But yeah, I know I like when you're talking about a spy movie. I feel like so many of the other Bonds, they just never looked convincing in any kind of fight scene. It always looked a little too comic bookish, and they didn't strike me as serious enough to be spies. So for me, yeah, I thought Daniel Craig was great. I think Timothy Dalton was actually quite good. So I'm probably going to take in all the opposite stances here on Bond as you are, Bernie.
The last James Bond movie was so long ago. I don't even remember which one it was, but I don't watch the new ones anymore.
Ah, okay, all right.
After Daniel Craig, I stopped watching.
Well, I don't think there's been anybody since Daniel Craig, so I don't know if even I don't know if there's been an announcement for somebody new or not. But
Pierce
yeah,
Brosnan,
no, it's
Pierce
been a few
Brosnan
years.
was right.
Pierce Brosnan.
He was a James Bond for a while, right?
Yeah, at least maybe two or three movies before Daniel Craig, I think. He was okay. I don't know. He didn't really strike me as that convincing either. But I like him as an actor, Pierce Brosnan. But yeah, it didn't feel quite right to me. So I want to ask you another pop culture question, Brady. So what television shows are you currently watching?
Nothing on network television.
Okay. Which
Um,
I think is probably you have that in common with a lot of people.
except for sports, except for sports. If NFL football were not on network television, I wouldn't watch any network television, I guess. Uh, I just find every now and then I'll watch something on Netflix or one of the other streaming services,
Mhm.
platforms. But network television is an idea whose time has come and gone. They're losing a certain percentage. I read the percentage recently, but I forget what it was, but it's a troubling percentage every year. Their audience is literally dying off. And I don't think there's any way to get young viewers back to watching network television, not when they have so many other places to go for entertainment.
So you don't watch any streaming series sort of on a regular, whether it's been binge watching or once a week or any of that?
Yeah, when there's something good. The
Okay.
last, I mean, this has been off the air for at least probably 10 years, maybe less, but Homeland was my favorite TV show of all
Oh,
time. I watched that religiously when it was on, but that was now we're going into ancient history.
oh, okay.
I've watched some other things since, but I don't think our audience would find it interesting, whatever I've been watching.
We should people should if they're enjoying their certain streaming shows, definitely leave that in the comment section for Bernie to perhaps consider and check out because I think there are a lot of good streaming shows. I mean, my wife and I are finding stuff all the time. For comedy, we started watching this show called Fisk. It's an Australian sort of a legal comedy. Dexter Resurrection. We've been enjoying Alien Earth. Slow Horse is about to come back for a new season. Have you
Horses
have you seen Slow Horses, Bernie?
Horses was very good. I'm looking forward to a new season. That was very
Excellent.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very entertaining. So last question, Bernie, I got to ask, any good movies that you've seen lately?
I'm sort of glad you asked me that, and I had no idea about anything you were going to ask me. As I said earlier, I haven't been to a movie theater. I think the last movie I saw was Gone with the Wind at its
In the theater.
premiering at the Fox Theater in Atlanta. Um, I just don't go to movies anymore.
Is it because of how famous you are, Bernie? Because people are running up asking for autographs and
Let
you
me
just
tell you
can't.
how famous I am, Mr. Snark. I was actually in a Hollywood movie, Concussions, with starring Will Smith. It wasn't a big popular movie, but uh, I went to see it. My interview that I did with an NFL doctor was in a Hollywood movie starring Will Smith. When my scene came up, I had to fight the temptation to stand up in the theater and say, "Hello, that's me up there." Uh, and that may have been the last movie I've seen in a theater. I just don't go to movies anymore. I
For
watch
those who don't
I watch
don't
sports
know,
on TV. I watch cable news on News Nation in the evening if there's no game on. I stopped watching Fox. I haven't watched Fox primetime in many years, and I don't watch MSNBC primetime or CNN primetime. Um, sorry, I'm not that interesting, but
no, that's all right. I will say, Bernie, you are in another movie. At least your voice is. You brought this up before. The Insider, of had to do with something going on. The story going on at CBS with the tobacco industry. Your voice is heard in the background during one of the scenes.
yeah, Dan Rather, the person playing Dan Rather is on a TV set in the background, and he says tonight on Bernard Goldberg's America, which was a segment that I had on the CBS Evening News. So that's as close to the big time movies that I've ever gotten.
Excellent, excellent. My son and I. went this weekend to an independent theater and saw the 50th anniversary release of Jaws, which is probably my favorite movie. Just an excellent movie, but I always take opportunities when that's on the big screen to see it. Were you a fan, Bernie?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out in the 70s, I guess. But look, my favorite movies are Casablanca, The Godfather, classic movies. I mean, Jaws is a classic movie, but not the kind of classic movie I that resonates with me. It was a great movie, but I'm not going to watch it a second time. By the way, I have one thought about this idea that we had to do the interview with me. Let's never do it again.
Really? I
I
think it's
think
gone pretty well.
I'd like to know, I'm going to make a statement. I'd like to hear from our fans, our
Okay.
subscribers, what they think of this statement. If you want a cure for insomnia, watch the interview with me, the one that John is conducting with me. If you need a cure for insomnia, because you'll go right to sleep watching. Am I
I thought
being
it went quite well. That's interesting. I thought it was good. I mean, I was surprised, Bernie. I thought maybe you'd have some more colorful.
I'm being self-deprecating.
Excellent. Well, that was my last question about it. Was the movie one? So I'll throw it back to you if you want to close things out.
Let's get out of here.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
See you.